amending Plan DSM to revise the future land use classification for portions of the property from community mixed use, parks and open space, and development control zone to community mixed use and development control zone. And to review and approval of the First Amendment to the United Properties Echo Valley PUD conceptual plan to allow the development of new residential and commercial uses. Would anyone like this item moved to the public hearing for discussion? Anyone on the commission? Okay. Item number 6 will stay on consent. Item number 7 is a request from Raccoon Valley Investment Company, represented by Michael Coppola, regarding approximately 43.9 acres of property on 2 parcels located in the vicinity of 2909 County Line Road for review and approval of a second amendment to the Airport Business Park Phase 2 PUD conceptual plan to allow residential development. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like this item moved to public hearing for discussion? Anyone on the commission for item 7? Okay, item 7 will also stay on consent. So, consent public hearing items include item 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. Could we have a motion to move the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Thank you, Emily. Everyone in favor, please raise your right hand. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. So we will start with public hearing items, starting with item number 4, and Jillian will present from the city.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Jillian Summer with planning staff. Item number 4 is in regards to property in the vicinity of 1601 6th Avenue. It's located at the intersection of 6th Avenue and College. There is an existing building at the corner that will be maintained. The remaining buildings on the property will be demolished or are being demolished already. The proposed project is 2 buildings. Like we said, the existing building, historic building at the corner, will be maintained and renovated. It's a 2-story building. The first floor will include some retail uses and then residential units above. Then a new building will be constructed to the north. This will be a 3-story building. The first floor will include a food hall and some assembly space, gathering space. There will be some residential units on the first floor towards the rear of the building, and then there will be 2 stories above with residential units. Total residential units in the second building is 24, and I believe it's 5 in the historic building. Parking will be located to the rear with access off of College. It wraps up and around to the north, creating this L shape. The landscaping plan shows that there will be this plaza space between the 2 buildings, buffer yard along the east and south, or east and north side, or west and north sides of the residential properties. This would include fencing and trees. The appeal before us is that the property is zoned MX1, which would require the storefront building. MX1 is intended to be a smaller scale commercial corridor district, and it requires that there shall be only 1 building per lot. Because there are 2 buildings on this property, they are requesting a type 2 design alternative to allow the 2 buildings together. The reason that they have the 2 buildings together is that the properties are being developed in collaboration with each other for financing purposes. So they do need to be maintained on the same property. Staff is in support of the design alternative and are recommending approval subject to compliance with administrative review comments. Any questions from the Commission? This is a picture of the existing building that will be maintained and renovated. You can see this is a view from the southeast. This is a view from the northeast looking down the street. We have received some letters from neighbors asking that this item be continued. I believe that the developer has met with the neighbors to try to address some concerns. I will scroll through their emails to us. They're generally requesting continuance for further discussion.
I have one question. So was this, the clearing of the site, was the clearing of the site already started with when we didn't know what was happening, or was the thing planned without the right approvals, or how does the sequencing work?
They have, I believe, submitted demo permits, but there has not been any approvals of anything new construction.
Gotcha, okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question, please. What were the concerns the developer had?
The emails that we received didn't totally identify what the concerns were. They generally said, they were interested in more information regarding landscaping, parking, but I don't know exactly what the concerns of the neighbors are.
I have another question. This was the original City of North Des Moines Town Hall.
Yes.
1890 building, plus or minus, right? And this is when North Des Moines was an independent community, incorporated as a town, right? And I've heard in some quarters that there's been a question to deny that original use and hence its designation. Does the city agree that this is an important building, originally a city hall and so forth?
It's not in a historic district that would need to be reviewed from a historic perspective, but I do believe that the project is seeking and receiving historic tax credits, and we are certainly supportive of that.
Yeah, thank you, that was my question.
Okay, thank you, Julian. Is the applicant present tonight?
Yes.
You're welcome to come up to present. You have up to 10 minutes. Please state your name and address, and then when you're done, sign in on that sheet to your right.
My name is Kukusa. I'm a developer and partner in Town Hall Associates LP. We've been working on this project for quite a few years. As Will mentioned, it's been a significant part of the history of not just North Des Moines, but Des Moines as a whole. It's been an incredibly challenging project, and we were fortunate to win the first ever Iowa Light Tech Innovation Set Aside. And the reason we won that was because of the innovations focused around community gathering that we incorporated in the building, right? We knew that we wanted housing, but we also wanted a space for people to gather. And that's the food hall concept. In the historic building, we'll have a coffee shop there. And throughout the process, it's been communication with neighbors, it's been communication with the communities. I've personally gone to multiple neighborhood association meetings. We've talked to 6th Avenue Corridor, which is responsible for economic development. We just had a meeting with a couple of the neighbors, just listening to concerns, and we'll be incorporating those concerns in going forward in the project. And looking forward to talking through it and finally making this project happen. Doug, our engineer, will be answering some of the more technical questions because all I know how to do is run around and talk to people. Doug actually does all the work. Thank you.
Excuse me, does the commission have any questions for the applicant? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Good evening, Doug Saltzgaver with CDA CGA Consultants. Don't even know who I work for, and he's giving me credit for doing all the work. 2413 Grand Avenue, Des Moines. Kuka just said we had about an hour-long meeting right before this gathering, and we talked about a number of concerns. Landscaping and buffering was one of their concerns, and we have no doubt we're going to get that resolved, working together with the neighbors and with city staff. Comes down to placement of some trees, species, things like that. We don't see any issues with that. One of the bigger concerns that came up at the end of our conversation was the placement of the trash enclosure, and they're wanting that moved. Their concern is with trash blowing around the neighborhood, which we obviously understand that is a concern at any point in the city, but we're having difficulty understanding how moving the trash enclosure is going to prevent or reduce blowing trash in the area. We're certainly willing to take a look at some things. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
One more thing too, the concerns around security and having security cameras around. So we will be having security cameras over the parking lot that will be monitored. That was one of the things that came up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in favor of this item? Anyone opposed? Please come forward. State your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes, and please sign in on that paper when you're done.
Mike Baldus, 501 College Avenue. I'm not actually opposed to the project. Need you to understand that. I live 2 houses away. Did you get the photos I sent of the house that was demolished for this project?
No, I did not receive.
It's okay. I sent them fairly last minute to Jasmine, the planner that's overseeing the site review, the site plan. My next door neighbor, Clint DeVore, back here in the corner, actually is the closest to this. He'll be just on the other side of that landscaping buffer. There was a house where the driveway is now on the plan. There was a house. So we've lost an 1880 house in the process of all of this. There's a lot of compromise involved, but we all want to see this project succeed. I served on the 6th Avenue Corridor Streetscape Committee for 10 years, and restoration of that town hall building was part of our vision from the very beginning. So we by no means want to be obstructionists to this thing. But Clint and I got letters in the mail a mere week before this meeting, and we had not received trickle-down information via the neighborhood association that really fully, adequately informed us as to, really what was going to ultimately arrive here. Of course, nobody had seen the site plan. Not even, I think, our board president hadn't seen the site plan. We got Jasmine Kamani to help us with that. And we got access to the site plan, and we immediately saw some problems. One of the things was that they were asking to not to be relieved of the privacy fence requirement, buffering the commercial properties from the residential properties, and we saw that as an immediate problem, of course, being the houses next door. They have, agreed that they will put up privacy fence, and actually planning told them no to that request to begin with. So we're on for the privacy fence. They've improved their landscaping buffer. They've promised to continue working on that. Forestry, they have to work with forestry also. So we're hoping that, we would like to see some tall, skinny trees that fill that, roughly 75-foot stretch of eastern boundary there that where the 3 stories worth of apartments will be looking into our backyards. You know, we'd like to not have that be our life going forward, as well as prospects for selling our homes eventually. The real sticking point seems to be at this point. We came here, we sent our letters asking for a continuance because we wanted to get this thing, it was our only moment of leverage in this process to ask the developers to come to the table with us a little bit to resolve some of the concerns that we had. And we have not resolved them all. What we were hoping for with our meeting just prior to this one was we were hoping that we could get to the point where we could have a conditional passage of this request and have those conditions down in writing. So one of those was that they will erect the privacy fence. One of those is they'll continue to work with forestry to provide more buffer between, view-wise, between the 3-story building and our backyards. And another one was they've promised to install a security camera system, which was not on the plan in the first place. So we've made good progress. Probably the biggest sticking point remaining, and I can say this on behalf of many of my neighbors, not just the ones who came tonight, but I've been picking up trash in this neighborhood for 34 years. It's a daily thing. And so trash is high on our list of things to watch out for. And that where they have that trash container, I appreciate from talking to the engineer, they have elevation grade change problems with this site, but where they have that trash container enclosure currently blocked by the handicap parking spaces just feels like a non-starter. You've got to have access. The truck has to have access. Now, I really believe Kuku is sincere when he says that, you know, he has a very important financial interest in the food court businesses being successful. They're going to use disposable wares, you understand?
Sir, your
Am
5
I out
minutes
of time?
is up. If you could wrap up your thoughts, please.
Okay. So we've got 29 apartments and 3 food business, 3 restaurant businesses that will all be putting their trash into that 6-foot container. And they currently have it blocked by parking. So that's a major issue we see. It needs to be resolved. And that we would like to see, I think the neighborhood is in agreement that if you pass this with a condition that will be, I don't really know how to put this. You know, I don't know how you can pass it with a condition that they will move it. But we'd like it noted at least that this is an unresolved issue.
Thank you.
And an important one. Thank you.
Thank you. Please do sign in if you didn't already. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to, who's opposed to this item? Please come forward. Would you like to speak to the group? Please state your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes, and then sign in.
I will
on
be
the sheet
brief.
when you're done.
And sign in afterwards?
Yes, please.
My name is Chad in Halfville. I own Indigo Dawn. All I wanted to add was clarification. Will asked earlier about the status of the building that's historic. It is not in a historic district as was stated. It is on the National Registry. So I wanted to clarify that. The building is important because of its particular history at the annexation of North Des Moines into the city of Des Moines. So there is a significance to that building, and it's a lot work has gone into both designing and meeting the standards, the National Park Service standards, and should be seen. It's less to do with this issue, but wanted to make sure that was clear. That's all I had.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in opposition to this item?
Yes.
Please come forward. State your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes, and please sign in when you're done.
My name is Clint DeVore. I own the property immediately to the west of, or to the east of this development, 503 College Avenue, and also south of the northern easternmost parking lot. Throughout this year, we've posed some new concerns to this area, including homelessness and trash that has not been addressed either by the city as a whole, that has not been in that area recently. I've lived at that location for almost 4 years now. My parents owned it for 20 prior to that, and we have never had an issue like we saw start this year, probably with the relieving of their area to live in the homeless camps. But throughout this year, I've seen many break-ins into those buildings. I've attempted to contact Cuckoo, I forget the pronouncing of his last name, and I apologize for that. I've left many messages with an individual who identified himself as the manager of his existing business at Mars Cafe, left my phone number, left information that I needed, that I would like to be contacted by him, and I have not once been contacted by him, so that's a concern that I have not had addressed. Again, the trash is also an issue that has gone unaddressed, and to be honest with you, over the course of the 20 years that my parents owned this property and looking at the restoring of this building and years and years of it sitting, to have this suddenly, I didn't even know that any destruction was going, or excuse me, demolition was taking place until they showed up and started it, and then asked me to accommodate for the, possibility of trees falling on my property, and I have, a vested interest in my privacy being encroached. That, again, I would like to have some assurances in writing that we have not reached yet. So that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else in the audience like to speak in opposition to this item? Anyone neutral?
Hi, my name is Carol Maher. I live in downtown Des Moines. And I'm really excited about this project. I think activating the parcel will mitigate some of the crime and other issues that have been mentioned. But as I spoke at the Urban Design Review Board on this issue, I believe that the project is severely overparked, especially on a corridor that has bike infrastructure for people to come to this project on their bike, and it's a pedestrian-friendly corridor as well. At that meeting, the person representing the project said that it was intentionally overparked, which again was sort of like, ugh, to me. Also, it would be really great if there was indoor bike storage for people that live there, so that they don't have to park their bike either in their unit or at the outdoor bike racks, because having to park your bike in your unit like I do, it's just always in the way. And if you have to park it outside year-round, your bike gets rained on and snowed on and mud on and all that other stuff. So as a resident, it's just kind and considerate and actually market-driven to have indoor bike storage. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay. The applicant does have 5 minutes for rebuttal if there's any additional comments or concerns from the neighbors that you'd like to address.
Just addressing Clint's comments. So as far as the messages are concerned, anytime we got a message, we go and board it up. It's been broken into so many times, and there's a couple of really interesting issues with ownership where we just took control of the property this year. So even though we didn't have control, it was owned by someone else, we took on the responsibility of boarding it up. So just wanted to clarify that situation. Thank you.
Can I ask?
Yep, you've got a question.
Yeah, I have a question, please. Several people spoke about the trash enclosure and so forth, which was a legitimate concern, and I'm sure it's a legitimate concern of you as well. If we were to pass this application tonight and refer it on to City Council, would you be willing to have a proviso or a condition to study the issue of a trash enclosure before it goes forward, so that these concerns that people have raised you could discuss them and assuage their concerns?
Yes. Yes, and one of the things that we talked about right before this meeting was we've had our architects and engineers try to figure out the best location for trash, because I'm going to be a business owner in that building. It's in my interest for the building to be successful and for the building to be attractive. But you look at an infill development like this and how weird the lot is. There's not a ton of opportunities as far as location of trash enclosures are concerned, but we would love to keep on talking. And if there's a solution or an idea that can be found just through conversations with our neighbors, yes, we will definitely take that on.
Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, the comment was made about saying it's intentionally overparked. What's that mean? Or is that accurate, and what does that mean, or why would it be intentionally overparked?
I don't think it's intentionally overparked. We have 49 units. There's 29 apartment units there, and I think the rule of thumb is 5 spots per 1,000 square feet of retail. So it's right in line. It doesn't seem overparked to me.
Yeah, I wonder, as I look at the site plan and the parking, the notes for the parking, in Des Moines, a lot of our districts that are these mixed-use districts in neighborhood settings, there's an allowance for a reduction. You only have to provide up to 60%. It looks like what you're providing is kind of in between. If I'm looking at this correctly, there's 50 stalls. If you followed the parking standard for most of the city, you'd be required to provide 60 stalls, but because of that provision that allows it to be reduced by code, you'd only have to provide a minimum of 36 here. So I'm guessing the intention of the comment is that you went above that, or you didn't take a full advantage of the reduction. You're kind of in between what would be the standard elsewhere in the city and more auto areas, and then what you could in fact go down to. That's how I take the comment.
And part of the thought process also is you think ahead to neighborhoods that surround downtown Des Moines, right? You think about Ingersoll and a lot of the conversations and issues that are happening right now after the development has been done. It's thinking through what the current density is and making sure that if we have one more food hall in there, there is some space, that isn't the major barrier for usage of our space. Again, we're not at the maximum parking. We're trying to create density. We're trying to see a little bit more density up and down the street. As was mentioned, Carol mentioned, great bikeways. That's why I chose to live in that neighborhood, because of the proximity to bike trails. And the expectation, the hope is that people continue to bike around, take advantage of some of the amenities that the neighborhood has to offer. But having a retail location to making sure that people who haven't experienced the neighborhood are able to feel comfortable coming to experience the neighborhood.
And the only other one, I think it was Clint, I apologize. He mentioned there's things he wanted in writing to say, hey, I'm committed to this. Is there anything that he's asked for? You're like, oh, we can't do that because of such and such a reason? Or are you guys both on the same page is what you're saying?
I think we're pretty much on the same page.
Yeah, I think the one thing that isn't like a code requirement or there's no code structure for is the security cameras, but code requires them to do the buffering with the fencing and the plant material. We'll work with them on that, and you are agreeing to that. The trash enclosure, I appreciate that you're willing to look at it. As I look at this, I don't know that there's actually a better place to put it. So we can look with you as staff to see if there's a better place, but I don't know that moving around the site solves the things might blow problem. Really, that landscaping, we'll work with the applicant on the camera thing, that's, if you want to offer that. But again, that's kind of outside of like our Chapter 135 review processes. And again, the only reason we're here today, this is a by right development. The only reason is the one bit of relief that's being asked for, which is have 2 buildings on 1 parcel.
What is the security camera issue? I'm sorry.
Then I think that the neighbors had asked for, and Cuckoo had agreed to have a security camera that's monitored for the parking lot area.
Gotcha.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will close the public hearing and open it up to the commission for discussion and motions.
I've got a question. Has the site plan been approved for this?
No, it can't be approved until the commission takes action on this request, and then we'd have we'll still have the administrative buttoning up of the process at the back end.
Okay. I think that with the site plan requirements and the code requirements, the trash thing's a moot point. It's got to be an enclosed trash enclosure with a lid. Any improvement in this block is going to improve the conditions I think we heard concerns about. I don't think there's parking on 6th Avenue, on-street parking. Is there? On the northbound lane? Okay, it doesn't look like it on the phone, but I do think, there's the concerns with the number of parking spots, as a business owner and some of that. There's going to be a switchover of when the retail space is going to be crowded and all the residents are home. So I think the number of parking spots is adequate for what the use in the property development is going to be. So I would move staff without any written language, because I think the site plan review is going to take care of those concerns.
Any discussion on the motion?
I guess I'd like to add that I'm always encourage us to be very, very cautious when considering continuances, because expenses, right, a delay is an expense and adds to the overall cost of a project. Thrilled to see more housing being produced. I'm thrilled to see a building that's been vacant and has significance to the neighborhood being repurposed, which is actually why we have this situation of 2 buildings on this one lot, right? Because of the preservation of the historic building. So I think this is a super exciting project, and I'm also with staff recommendation.
Thank you.
I have a request for a friendly amendment or from Todd. The developer actually agreed that he would consider working with the neighbors to talk about the trash enclosure. I think that's a courtesy that we as a city should allow neighbors, because they do have a concern, particularly when the developer agreed to do it.
Whatever language you want to add is.
But I don't know that the motion precludes it, I think is.
Right. I think that, through the site plan development and approval process, that the input from the neighbors is part of the process. But
Any further discussion?
Only other one piece on the record is parking in more cars on neighborhood streets brings more people into neighborhoods, which reduces crime, reduces speed of roads, increases safety, and improves our ability to actually be connected throughout the whole neighborhood. So just parking on 6 isn't a bad thing. Having it all in the neighborhood too helps us all very, very much as well. Just a comment for the record for later.
Thank you. Okay, let's vote on the motion on the floor. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, motion passes. Item number 5 will be presented by Michael.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission, Michael Delp, Planning Staff. The applicant is proposing to subdivide 65 properties located within vicinity of 2401 East 50th Court. This is the preliminary plat in the process. Just to give the commission context on this, it's a little bit wonky, it uploaded wrong, I apologize on that, but basically from looking here, the eastern part is the northern part. The northern part is the eastern position, south, and the other side there. This is existing vacant land, about 5.7 acres. The surrounding uses are a mix of single-family residential. There's a church to the south and a private golf course. Everything proposed here, it's a mix of townhomes that mix from 4 to 6 attached units. Everything proposed here matches the approved PUD on file, the PUD plan on file for the area. Just to give the commission kind of an overview of what the general maneuvering looks like on site and where the townhouses will be positioned. You can see our north arrow right here, that's pointing to the left side here, but basically everything is oriented with the garages towards the private streets that are going to be put in, with front stoops oriented towards the residential on the east side and just towards the back sides of the townhouses. Here's another sheet showing the just planned landscaping on site and just what that'll look like from kind of a final landscaping perspective. Yeah, our recommendation from a staff level is just to approve the preliminary plat subject to additional staff, considerations through the process. Any questions? Oh yeah, there were no comments received for this too. Apologies.
Just to reiterate what Michael is saying, that this is the plat that's just creating the parcels for the project that's already been approved by the planned unit development. So this layout and this concept has already been established as a right to do this. So this action is just creating parcels to be sold.
Correct. The approved PUD plan has it sets out the uses, it sets out the layout and the positions of the streets. So this is just subdividing each of those properties so each townhome can have like owner occupied and establishing those legal lot lines.
Any questions for Michael? Thank you. Is the applicant in attendance? If you would like, you could come forward. You have up to 10 minutes to speak. Please state your name, address, and sign in when you're done.
I'm Tamaja Wilson, 4017 33rd Street. The only thing I really have to say about this is we haven't increased any lot sizes or anything like that. As Michael has said, it's the same exact thing that was approved at the PUD standpoint. I think the only changes we've made is to meet some fire codes, but other than that, everything's the exact same. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak who is opposed to this item? Anyone in favor? Oh, sorry. Please come forward. State your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes and sign in when you're finished.
Hello, Micah Geiler, 5090 Northeast 23rd Avenue. So I don't live in the new development. This will be in my backyard. So my only request is a privacy fence. I don't know who I'm talking to here. Just for the backyards of all the people that are the old houses, I guess, not the new houses. My neighbors right here, they're going to have a parking lot in their backyard. So I think that also it will appeal to the people buying these new row homes to not look into.
Thank you. Please do sign in. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in opposition? Please come forward, state your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes, and sign in when you're done.
Phil Williams, property 2306 East 50th Court, corner, plat 3 of the west side of East 50th Court. So I had a couple questions as far as the agenda goes. So in here, it shows that it was approved October 18th of 21, and that's pretty much before anybody lived on that street. So we had no knowledge even going into building and buying homes on that street about a multifamily development. And then I noticed today that you guys want to propose a private road street system. Is that kind of what we're trying to approve today too?
Yeah, so on the image that you see before you, the kind of the grayed out, that's the private road network and for the townhome community. So instead of those being public streets, those would be private. So it's just that the language on the agenda is just a descriptor of giving context.
Okay, so I have a couple concerns. Living on the corner there, are these properties going to be owned or rented out? I'm worried about my property value, up or down or over the years with a multifamily development. And part of the HOA, I think, too, I don't know how that's going to transpire. So I got questions about that. But one big thing for us, I believe, on East 50th Court is the traffic. We have upwards of 130 plus cars going to be in about 1,100 foot, 2 driveway entrance. And we're worried about the stop sign being about 40 feet from one of the entrances. Traffic congestion, all those things. As far as the south entrance, and that one happens to be directly in front of my driveway. So I wonder if that's a safety concern, having 2 driveways back to back, literally. Along with pulling out of there, I have one concern about headlights shining directly into the bedroom. So I drove this yesterday, measured out everywhere I needed to do, drove my car, and it just shines headlights completely in my bedroom and my front window of my house. That's another one. And then, so where does that lie? Where do we have concerns on that? And how can we possibly change that or revamp that?
So you live in a master planned development, and the original plan for this development included some sort of multifamily townhome development on this parcel from the get-go. So the original developer that set this up, and I would defer to the applicant, but I assume that it's one HOA. I couldn't tell you if there's a separate HOA, but so the design for this whole neighborhood was laid out multiple years ago, and so what they're doing is executing that design. So you never know which part of a development is going to happen first. It very well could have been that this could have been built first and the houses came later. In this case, the houses came first and this is coming later, but it had always been planned that way. Driveways across from each other is actually safer than having them offset. It's not unusual in a neighborhood to have T intersections where a road will tee into somebody's lot, whether it's a public road or a private drive. I think if you go further up in this neighborhood, I imagine you'll find that condition in multiple places. So I don't think, and there's never seen any evidence that rental property harms property values. I don't know if you had any other questions or if I made it through your list.
Well, as far as that goes, I do have a question. That's a two-way. Is that considered a street then? Since they're going to be having entrance and exit cars right there within about 50
But it's a
feet
private
of an
drive.
intersection? Of a main intersection? And then we worry about traffic coming in.
Yeah,
things of that nature
the whole
too.
layout was reviewed by our traffic engineering staff, and they didn't have any concerns.
Okay, so is that a no?
We don't believe there's any concern with the layout, if that's the question.
Okay, so what if it becomes a safety concern down the road? After completion?
This is a common occurrence as development happens. We review it, we have standards, if it meets the standards, it gets approved. We never know what the future is going to hold. Most of the time,
Right.
our experience is that it holds true. The standards are based off of best practices and past experience. This meets the standards.
Okay, and then on traffic and, upwards of 150 cars in that short radius, do you see that as a problem? Near an intersection?
I don't believe that this is going to be a problem.
Okay, so what would be a next step then to deter or continue and maybe get a petition by all the neighbors that are on board here as a safety concern?
There is no next step.
There's none.
They already have a development right to do this. They already have a site plan approved to do this. They don't have to subdivide this. This could be done on a single parcel as completely as a rental community. They are parceling it off so they can sell the individual units.
Okay. I think, what else do I have? I think that's all I have for now. But I would like that noted, just a safety concern, major safety concern for one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please do sign in before you go. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Anyone in favor? Or neutral? Okay, applicant, you do have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like to address any of those concerns. Okay, I'll close the public hearing then and open it up for discussion and motions from the commission.
I'll move staff.
Thank you, Katie. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we will move to item number 8, which will also be presented by Michael.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Michael Dell, planning staff. This is a request from Scottish Rite Park at 2909 Woodland Avenue for review and approval of a public hearing site plan, Scottish Rite Park, and for a type 2 design alternative to waive the requirements to install public sidewalk along Woodland Avenue and 28th Street. Here's the existing property right here. It's a pretty big property, 373,358 square feet, about 8.5 acres. They have about 1,340 feet of frontage along Woodland Avenue here in 28th Street. The existing zoning on site is RX1, and the existing uses on site are a senior apartments and a senior assisted living facility. The surrounding uses are a mix of multifamily residential and single-family residential, and some public school space up to the north. Just to give context to the Commission, Woodland Avenue here, the entire stretch, and 28th Street are mapped Priority 1 sidewalk apps and Move DSM, the city's transportation master plan. There are also recent discussions on the neighborhood meetings and neighborhood SID plans on putting a priority on sidewalk connections within the neighborhood. I want to kind of go over, here's just the existing site plan that they have submitted here. It's a little bit messy with the existing landscaping on site, but I did go out and take some pictures. I want to kind of really convey the existing conditions on site to the Commission. Just for a layout and to get everybody oriented, I am going to go from this western property line here around the corner at 28th Street and just on the other side there through my site pictures. This is that western property line here. They have significant grade increases here. That fence is basically where their western property line hits with the multifamily uses to the west. Right here is across that drive. They do have an existing private sidewalk that goes down to the bottom of the drive. It's relatively flat in here, and as we continue east along Woodland Drive, the grade goes up significantly here. Just moving a little bit further towards that intersection here along the east side, more significant grade changes. And this is around the corner there for 28th Street. This kind of goes up and down all the way there. You'll notice too that there's pretty significant utility lines also. These have connections to the existing houses across Woodland Avenue and 28th Street. For this request today, there are existing sidewalks along Woodland Avenue and 28th Street. The request from the applicant is for full waiver of these sidewalks being installed along all the frontages. Having discussions with city engineering and traffic staff, we do agree that a lot of the frontage is close to impossible to do without significant investments. Greater than 50% grades, there'd be pretty significant retaining walls involved. Also relocating utilities also. We do recognize the existing condition of this private sidewalk going down here for the residents on site, and it basically dead ends here. So anybody wanting to leave the site has to either cross the street into this existing private driveway or just cross the street over here to get to 29th Street. We did have initial recommendations from our traffic staff and engineering staff to have a full sidewalk connection here to the western property line, all the way across their driveway and this private sidewalk to the east side, just over on the other side, with a connection across Woodland Avenue. So the residents on site could get that connection point and be able to walk from this current private sidewalk infrastructure to public sidewalks. For our recommendation, there are pretty significant grade hurdles here to the west of the existing driveway. Without the western property being required to develop and put in the sidewalk right now, it would be basically half a retaining wall for a hill. That's why for our recommendation, we are recommending approval of the site plan with the conditions that the applicant puts in just this sidewalk connection from this private drive access here to the east, and then that crosswalk connection to the south. We believe this will provide connection to the residents on site. There are existing DART stations on the south side of, DART stops on the south side of Woodland Avenue that could provide, connection points and public transit for any residents on site. And we did not get any cards or comments on this. Any questions from the commission?
I just wanted to make sure I understood the graphic that you showed with the purple sidewalk. You're now proposing not requiring that full length?
Yep.
But just from where the sidewalk is today to the east and
Correct.
down?
And south.
Okay.
And that crosswalk.
Which is a little different than what's in the staff report?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just, after further discussion with the applicant and get out on the site, talking to our engineering staff, kind of realized that going west of the driveway was going to be it's not as practical as we initially thought. But
Okay.
we still do feel that going to the east and crossing is important and can be done.
Thank you.
Question?
Have you checked with the owner of the property about this notion, and if so, what was the response?
We have, and we offered several of these alternatives, first being the full extension from the western property line, just to have that sidewalk connection to the west. The response was that it would be difficult to install this with the current project scope, and they're seeking full waiver of the first proposal and this proposal just for the eastern connection and to the south.
So you say, repeat that once again, please.
Sure. So we offer this first proposal here from the western property line through the driveway with this connection to the crosswalk on the south across Woodland. And we had internal discussions, but from the applicant's perspective, that wasn't feasible on their side. And then we kind of reduced the scope after we looked at the existing grade issues here to the west of the driveway. And we came back with an offer that it would just be a requirement to do this eastern section here and this crosswalk connection. And it was not within their project scope. I'll defer to their contact to go into that on the feasibility.
I have a question for staff. This was triggered by what? Evaluation of the improvements?
So
Change of use?
cumulative permit value, the project scope, they had a minor exterior expansion of a patio, and then I believe there's a $2 to $3 million interior improvement.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is there a way, if the sidewalk is ever built along the property on the west, that then this additional segment could happen? I mean, it makes sense that there would be no reason to build a sidewalk, especially an expensive sidewalk that goes to nowhere. But should that property, meaning at some point need to do that, then it would be nice to come back and say.
Yeah, that's the challenge of these types of requests and dealing with the sidewalk issue and site plans, and we're always really kind of at a point in time and only have, we have a window of opportunity and kind of have to balance out the pros and the cons of thinking long-term. Obviously, if this was a flat area, we would typically say, build it to your property line and then your neighbor will pick up on it. But here, the grades are such that's just not reasonable.
Because I especially hate, given that that's multifamily next to it, and if this connection is being put there to allow folks access to a DART stop,
right,
then there's a lot of people that would benefit from having a sidewalk in that space and not having.
We don't disagree with that. It's just that you would have kind of L-shaped retaining wall there for a long time, and probably not actually a great. You wouldn't really want to, encourage them to hop that. They'd probably go out in the street anyway at that point. So.
Is it how? Like the east side of it, we're only talking about like 15 feet, aren't we? Or how long is it?
I believe just eyeballing it was between like 45 to 60 feet.
No.
From the no, really?
Go back to your drawing.
Sure.
Like, aren't you really basically going up to that sign that you had right there?
Yeah, I mean, it's about the width of where the driveway is.
Yeah, it's not. So it's like 15, maybe 20 feet, and it goes to a corner, right?
I have it at 40 scale.
You have it 40? That east side just from, okay. Either way.
Okay, well, first, we probably need him at the podium so he can be heard, but we're talking about just running it from the driveway.
Do you mind going back to the picture you had just in front of you?
Yeah. So just,
there. Whoop. Nope.
Which one?
Back again. Keep going. One more. Oh, nice. Really just talking about where the grass is brown to like almost right in front of that sign? Is that what we're talking about or no?
Yeah, that's the revised staff recommendation for today, is just doing this.
Just in front of those utility.
It's probably generally right here, if you can see my cursor.
Okay. Either way, sorry, I'm sorry for getting into numbers. That's my mistake. However, I guess I am curious because generally this seems like it makes sense to me. I agree with going west seems ridiculous and going around the whole property given how steep it is. I think that's ridiculous. As I get older and I get slower, part of my question is if we actually are going to have this be useful and meaningful, are we going to be putting in any requirement for actually painting a crosswalk or anything else? Because as someone who's through here a lot, it is sort of, blind road for people like me who get slower to walk across regularly. What?
For the crosswalk, we did have conversations with traffic staff, and it would not be recommended from their perspective and their design standards to put in like a striped zebra crosswalk.
So you're just putting a corner in there in front of a place where people may be at different speeds and just saying, hey, we want to encourage you to walk across this road with no protections when that road gets a little fast and narrow. That doesn't sound good, does it?
I can't speak to that, but yeah, we can definitely have those conversations with traffic staff and see where their design standards kind of play out with recommendations.
Okay.
Well, and I would hope those design standards would address age, right? There might be different reasons to have a crosswalk here
I can be slow
that might be
young.
outside of their design standards.
Yeah, I think there's just, over the year, there's very limited budget for crosswalk maintenance, so they're very particular about where they're actually done, because it's a big challenge to maintain those. But anyway, I do want to, I think we are off a little bit, because I think this driveway is wider than we realize, because as I'm measuring it, we might actually be talking about 40 feet, but.
Any other questions for Michael?
All right.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Please come forward, state your name, address. You've got up to 10 minutes, and sign in when you're done.
If I need to use images, do I?
We can switch to the document camera, to that flat.
I can use that.
Yes, yeah, we'll switch to it.
Um,
Yeah, I can submit. Trejo, she's got you there. Might have to power it up.
I'm probably going to repeat a couple of things that might go over as well. Just to get started, my name is Asa Westfall with the Architect's Office that's been working with Scottish Rite on the interior remodel of this building. The address 2123 40th Street is my address.
Can you switch
that? So I kind of want to just kind of go over a couple of the things that were already discussed. This is that entire block that the facility sits on. It's about 4 normal city blocks by 4 normal city
Could you talk into the
Excuse
mic?
me, sir. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, we have to get it on the mic.
Yeah. Sorry. This is sort of the overall area. It's about 4 city blocks by 4 city blocks, as already discussed. I did want to point out that we were recognizing that there actually is sidewalk starting here on 28th, going all along Center, comes all the way down along 31st, and I believe wraps the corner to about right there. The 2 properties in this area that don't have sidewalks are the Four Seasons Apartments and the Scottish Rite Park. And that's because that's when the grades reach, well, I guess it's just not feasible. As was discussed, this is the overall site for the Scottish Rite Park again. Here's our area, no sidewalk. This is the area that we were just discussing. To close in on that again, you've already seen this. So that's not any real news. Then finally, this is kind of where, over the last couple of days, the discussions I've been having with Michael. It was originally discussed to connect this all the way through, and then the assumption that we made when we were sitting down with the owner is that at some point the city is going to want the apartment complex to also run a sidewalk. It just seems like if that's, if we're going to run this sidewalk to nowhere, it was kind of futile at this point. And so talking with the owner, one of the things that they said is, this really isn't an issue of not wanting to have a sidewalk. They'd be perfectly happy to conform with it. The thing is it's really an issue of the money that was set aside for their remodel, because this is an interior remodel. They had absolutely no plans to be doing any site work, but it was triggered by the previous remodel that they did. Again, I'm going to repeat some of the images that you I've already seen here, but I just want to point out a few more things. This right here is an image looking from the 29th Street intersection. What you would be looking at is continuing this sidewalk here with a curb cut going straight across. Somewhere in this area, there would be another curb cut going in. I was looking at some, like the SUDAS recommendations of where they would want their sidewalk. I was being kind of liberal and pushing like about a 5-foot parking area, as they call it, for the grass between the sidewalk and the back of the curb, and then running a sidewalk. But some of the things I wanted to point out was the curbs here are well buried by the asphalt in these streets, so building new sidewalks here, this will kind of come into play here in my discussion a little bit later. This is across that street where you're looking at where the utility vaults are in that same area. And then just looking straight down, this is sort of the slope that we're looking at. As you can see, there is still a fairly serious grade here, and even getting onto the other side, it gets much steeper. Lastly, I kind of wanted to bring up just a quick sketch I did of what we're looking at in terms of what would have to be done just to do that sidewalk on the east side. Right here, you're looking at about the street level. Right here, we only have, like I said, about a 2 to 3 inch curb height, which I assume if we're going to go by SUDAS, we're going to have to make some improvements there. So already we're taking out probably 2 feet of the street, putting in new curbs, raising the curb up, moving in about 5 feet with a curb cut at a 1 to 12 slope. At 5 feet, it's going to get us about in this area. And just in that area alone, we're looking at about a 2-foot retaining wall that's going to have to continue pretty much the full length of this entire sidewalk. It's going to have to start somewhere in here and cover this edge, and then come along to prevent any of the soil from covering that sidewalk. So that's sort of like, that is what, working with Michael, they've kind of came to, and again, we really appreciate talking with them about that and having them give us that suggestion. But I guess I kind of outlined sort of some of the concerns here, and I'm going to kind of start off with my closing statement, if you will. So this project was originally intended to be an interior remodel, and eventually the overall cost of other work they've done in recent years has triggered that site plan review, and we've kind of boiled it down to the one thing that we really need to resolve is the potential added cost of this proposed sidewalk puts the project in jeopardy. The original budget was about $3 million. We are currently sitting at about $3,330,980 after VE. That was just to get approval from the board for that interior remodel. Construction of the sidewalk just on that east side is probably going to be upwards of about $25,000 added to that. And like I said, we've been looking at a couple of additional costs that we might run into, then these are not included in that 25 plus, would be how are we going to handle that curb? And are we going to have to cut out, 2 feet, or whatever SUDAS requires to actually create that new curb? We're going to have an engineered design for a retaining wall, which we hadn't at all planned on, as well as the utility vaults do indicate that there probably are going to be some underground obstacles in that area. So the original conversation I had with the owner was looking at doing the sidewalks to the east and the west of their entry. And we also recognize that building a sidewalk to nowhere at great expense probably wasn't the best thing to do for now. What the owner had proposed is he would commit to providing the sidewalk in its entirety when that last section of sidewalk in front of the apartments is triggered by something. And that isn't, I hate to use the term kicking the can down the road, but it really is the idea that for him, if he can push that cost back to a point where it, makes sense and the city gets what they want and he doesn't lose his interior design project, is really the whole idea of opposing this in any way. So, I mean, just to kind of go back to my beginning, this is the added sidewalk, or the cost of the added sidewalk kind of puts their project in jeopardy in total. So that's really all I have to say on it.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have.
What is it?
Can you tell me when the building was constructed?
I believe the building was in 69? I believe it was constructed in 1969 was the original building. Scottish Rite, are you not familiar? It sits up on top of the hill.
No, I know,
28th,
I know
yeah.
that. In fact, it was one of the first downtown senior citizen centers or residences. It's significant for that reason.
Yeah.
Think about that. It's 50 years and at least age-wise. So think about that.
Any other questions for the applicant? Chris?
Is there a known distribution of what type of transport is used? I mean, is getting across the street for the bus an actual demand? Do we have people constantly walk across that street that need to get over there?
I'm going to say no. We've had a lot of conversation with the owner about, because I know bike racks was something that was brought up in the site plan review. People there don't really bike. The people who do bike have electric bikes. And they keep them in their garages. They do have covered garages on site. So typically you don't see people even going around the block. They actually have what they call the park is their entire site. They actually do have some trails around the site as well as an indoor track and a workout center or swimming pool. I mean, it's a very luxurious facility. Most of the people there are still driving unless they're in the nursing home, and those in the nursing home aren't really leaving the facility at all. So, if that wasn't understood, the main high rise of the building is actually more senior living, where they're completely independent. Whereas one of the, actually I might be able to explain this a little bit better. This location is actually the tower. This right here is like a nursing facility, as is this. This is all just parking. And then there's all parking down here too, our garages.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would like to speak in favor of this item? Anyone opposed? Or neutral? Carol?
Hi, my name is Carol Maher. I live in downtown Des Moines. And you know I'm a bicyclist, and I'm going to speak up for bicyclists here. May not be the residents, but perhaps the employees that come to that site daily, either on the bus or ride a bike, that need to cross that street. The residents may not be mobile, or maybe they can drive, but I don't know the type of employee that works there, but they're probably relatively low wage and may not own a car. So getting to that bus stop is probably important to them. When they leave work, they need to cross. Or if they have a bike, they can ride it there. It's also around the corner from two schools, and there are a lot of kids that go to those schools that use the sidewalks. It's a little sad that we're not installing type 1. I understand the reasons why, but it's still a little sad to me. So I just hope you remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant, well, is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak who's neutral on this item? Okay. Applicant, you do have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you have anything else to add.
I can't think of anything else to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing and open it up to the commission for discussion and motions.
I guess I think the sidewalk all the way around the perimeter, I think is excessive. I agree with Carol's point about the school, but Callanan right now is one that's actually set to be phased out anyway. As far as buses and access to Callanan, I think we have plenty of sidewalk access to the buses they would use anyway, so a bus on Woodland going up that way seems like it's a little excessive. I do, though, at the same time agree with the staff probably wanting a safe walkway across the street, and so having a connection just that east to the south, I guess I would be more than partially in favor of, balanced against the fact that we should probably be thinking about, if we're going to put in that, should we actually be maintaining a crosswalk a little bit more, a little better. So I guess I would be urging not to put the whole, was that?
Is that a motion?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I'll let Carolyn make the motion.
I
Todd?
I think it's, historically, people probably know that I'm not a fan of the triggers of this type of thing. And I think that's going to be addressed shortly from what I hear from other city staff. But I think a $25,000 improvement to the sidewalk and the safety of crossing that street triggered by a $3 million project is not that big a deal. So I'm going to move staff.
Any discussion on the motion?
Wait, is staff just the east side or staff
Yes, do we need
all
to-
the way to
Yes,
the boundary?
I assume you mean the amended staff as presented at the meeting.
Just the east, and I don't think they have to do the curb improvements, but I may be wrong, I don't know.
That's my question. Does staff include the curb improvements?
Do you know, Michael, did that come up in your discussions with engineering?
The curb improvements on the north or the south?
On the north, was that identified?
I think that's within the scope from what traffic has said.
Okay, so we will assume that the curb would have to be adjusted.
And then can we amend that a sidewalk, I mean, not a sidewalk, but a crosswalk study happens, or there's some consideration of that?
Yeah, I mean, you can ask us to, I mean, we'll follow up with the traffic staff. I just, unfortunately, I don't want to say, I'm very pro crosswalks. I really like the ones that are like the really wide, European looking, but I've been told multiple times about the expense and the lack of a budget.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to item number 9, which will be presented by Sriyoshi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sriyoshi Chakraborty, planning staff. I will be presenting item 9, which is a right-of-way vacation request requested by property at 1650 Dean Avenue. And the request is to vacate an L-shaped alleyway, which is bound by East 17th Street to the east. And I'll probably just go to the map so I can explain it a little bit better. So there's the L-shaped alleyway that's being requested to be vacated. So it's just to the east of East 17th Street, and the north-south section adjoins the east-west alleyway that runs between East 16th and East 17th Street. So the request came to us from the property owner at 1650 Dean Avenue, and the request was to vacate the entire L-shaped alleyway, and staff concurs with that request, because if we were to just vacate a portion of that alleyway, that would create dead-end right-of-way, which we would not like. So it makes sense to vacate the entire alleyway. But as you can see, the entire L-shaped alleyway does adjoin several property owners, so it does impact each one of them. So this is a picture looking to the east from East 17th Street. This is this area right here is the vacant Habitat for Humanity lot that's currently vacant, and this is the alleyway. As you can see, it's currently being used for parking, storage type purposes, and here's a closer look. So it's really not functioning as a right-of-way currently. It's mostly functioning as private space, as you can see. Looking here, this is the north-south portion that adjoins the east-west alleyway. As you can see, this is currently fenced off, so it is functioning as private space at the moment. There is no, it's not being used for any access or maintenance purposes as an alley is typically used. So with that, staff has looked at impacts to utilities, access, and so on. We believe that this alleyway does not serve a purpose of any access or maintenance, and therefore staff is supportive of the vacation request, so long as any, subject to any reservation of any easements for any existing utilities until such time that they are abandoned or relocated, and subject to provision of any necessary no-build easements. So that's staff's recommendation. We did receive an email and a comment card from one of the adjoining neighbors who is in opposition to this vacation request. The property owner is at 6040 Dean Avenue, and I'll just let you all read the concerns that have been outlined here. This is also the comment card that was sent by the same resident at 1640 Dean Avenue. And this is the map that shows the opposition from the adjoining property owner. We did not receive any other comments or feedback from any of the other property owners that adjoin the vacation area. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
When it's vacated,
Go ahead.
Chris, go ahead.
when it's vacated, would half the lot of that northeast southwest go to the respondent to respond negatively? How does the ownership of that alley split up at the time that it gets vacated? Because won't they get 8 foot wide of it?
Yes, so after the right-of-way is vacated, the city's real estate department will work with every individual property owner that adjoins, and each property owner has the right to purchase half of the right-of-way that adjoins their portion of the property. So they have the first right, and they may choose to purchase it, or if they're not interested, they may choose not to, and if they don't choose to purchase, then another property, the property owner on the other side may choose to purchase the whole right-of-way.
So if the back side, and I apologize for not recognizing the name quick enough, so the west half of that north portion would by default, as long as they pay like $100 or something to get the filing fee, right? And then if the other backs of the other 3 don't want it, they'd have first right to buy the other 3 out, so they'd effectively have their own private alley. Is that the process?
Yes, so if these 3 property owners choose not to purchase any of the alley right-of-way, then the property to the west can purchase the entire north-south section that adjoins the property.
All right.
I have a question. Why are we hearing this in the public hearing? Was it triggered by the comment cards, or why wasn't this on consent is my main question.
Correct. Since we had received the comment card and the email from the neighbor, we knew that there would be opposition to it. Also, prior to this coming before you, the applicant, when they make a request for a right-of-way vacation, the first step is for them to seek consent from all adjoining property owners. And at that time, the applicant tried and knew that this particular property owner was not supportive and didn't provide their consent. So therefore, we knew this is something that needed to be heard at the public hearing.
Yeah, we
Thank
don't
you.
know who's here or not tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Which one's the applicant house? Is it the one on the corner?
I believe it's this property right here.
Yeah, in the middle.
Yep, this one right here.
People that, one of them does want to purchase it.
You'll have a chance to come up and speak in a sec. Any other questions for Sriyoshi?
What is the width of the alley right away?
That's a good question. It should be about
16 feet is kinda
16. I
standard when you
can
look.
double check real quick.
It looks like it might be only 14 feet, fairly narrow. I zoomed in a little bit, got a little better, I believe it's 15 feet.
It's about 15.
Yeah, I just measured just exactly like that, yeah. But you get a little straighter, or perpendicular, there you go. We're pushing 15 feet.
Yeah, Jason's, yeah, it's about 15.
Any other questions? Thank you. The applicant is here. You can come forward. Please state your name, address, and you've got up to 10 minutes. And then when you're done, please sign in on that paper to your right.
Good evening, everyone. Janelle Patterson. I live at 1650 Dean Avenue. I'm the center of the three. I do have assigned vacation at 1646, which is just to the west of me, and then also to the east of me at 1654. I sent 2 requests out to everyone involved to find out if they were interested in buying theirs or if they had any questions about it. Where the boards are on the big alley, that's Gobin's house. He has planted a garden in there, and he's had it for years. Nothing's ever really been maintained back here other than I've mowed it several times through the years. I've lived at my house for 43 years. I understood when I first moved in that this was a fire access at one point in time. The big greenhouse is mine. I'm just looking, when I started out, I just wanted to get what was behind my house, thinking I could get it for parking. That big trailer there. Then it got to the point where it's all encumbered now for everything. And I don't have an objection to owning or buying everything. I plan on, if anybody wants it, then they can have it. We'll just work out a situation and let them go with it. The neighbor at 1640 has used this portion of the alley to have access into his property, but it's never been official or anything else. He's just, his grandparents live there, they have a bifold gate there, and they come and go down that alley. The person in the first house, she has access to that alley also. They have a slab poured for a garage, maybe someday they will build. So I want to keep that portion open and my portion. And the one person to the west of me, he wants to access that for his chickens. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
So why did you make the effort to vacate this? You were looking just to secure some more parking space?
Right, I need a parking space, and I've been maintaining it off and on for years.
Sure.
Eric did dump some rock in there. We kind of tore it up back in that trailer back in there, and he did dump some rock in there. Volunteered to a couple of times, so yeah, it's we just need it for parking if it's not going to be used. Okay?
Thank you.
Have you,
Chris.
is there, so you've been told to not park in there before, or how is the current process not fine?
No, I've never been told not to park in there. I was told, a couple of years ago, I got a letter to mow it. So I went back and I mowed everything that I could get my mower in. All 3 properties. And for a while, I was mowing the Habitat for Humanity.
You were told to mow the city alley?
Yeah. It's the homeowner's responsibility, is what the letter read.
Is that right?
I don't know enough about actually to make a call. I mean.
Call border area when it's not developed.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Chris, you look like you have a follow-up question.
I'm just confused. I mean, I'm just like, if it seems like everything's working, it seems like everyone is able to go, and it seems like you have one group where, I'm sorry, this isn't public discussion. I don't think I have a follow-up.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in favor of this item, in favor of vacating the alley? Anyone opposed? Please come forward. State your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, and please sign in when you're done.
Hi, yes, my name is Eric McCann. I reside at 1640 Dean Avenue, Des Moines. And the things I have concern about are the things that I've maintained, the alley, as you heard from Janelle Patterson mention. And then also, I've been passive on not getting the city after these folks for parking in the alley because of if the picture were to go to the north more, there's an easement from the driveway previous. So I was just using that for, being passive, not getting the city after them. Other than that, they've been parking back there for years. And once again, I just never, said anything to the city. I do have pictures, of the numerous vehicles and whatnot that they ported back there and whatnot. And my grandpa tried to work out to purchase the alley years ago to the easement for 1640 Dean Avenue. And the city turned him down. I don't know what reason. My grandpa, once again, he purchased it back in the 1950s. So we've resided there for going on, I want to say 75 years. I just oppose it because my grandpa, once again, he put the gate in to the easement for the property and worked it out with the city. And I just liked it, as far as you can see, everyone used it for what I intended to continue to use it for. Not necessarily for storage, but as you can see, equipment comes and goes out of there. And you can look back to even my neighboring neighbor is 1646, I believe. And he parks back there too and comes and goes at his leisure. And got the easement of that picture, that one right there, of the driveway to the alley right there. I spent time to repair that right off that sidewalk there that they have tore up. And that's pretty much all I have.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question just for orientation? So slide 5, if we're on slide 5,
Yeah, where's that?
by chance, this right here is your property, the right side, bottom right corner. Is that you?
Yep.
That there? So basically, is that wood fence yours, or is that your neighbor's to the left?
Once again, that's neighbors, and I never complained or anything about anybody doing anything because, there's never been any problems. Once again, I'm passive, so I don't create problems with my neighbors.
But yours is on the right, though? Or the...
Yeah, mine's the one to the right of the picket fence there. Yep.
So if this was vacated, he would have the right to take half of that wooden fence, half the other wooden fence, and that would be his his only guaranteed access out of using this alley again, which means you're tearing up all that.
So
Isn't
this is a view from.
This is from north to the southeast.
Yeah. So what you see in the foreground, just for clarification, is the alley that would remain. The leg of the alley under review starts where that wood fence is and heads.
Can we look at the plan again and locate where that wood fence is that's blocking something?
No.
It's at the top. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so the wood fence is right where the cursor is right now. That's the wood fence. The dirt road is the southwest to northeast road there. So if you give him his half, he cuts both of those fences in half. That other guy's garden goes away if he needs access to his space. And then he does not have guaranteed access to go out the fence he's been using from southwest to northeast out to East 17th Street. Am I clarifying that correctly?
Well, you might have. I just want to clarify that the gate that you were speaking to, sir, is on your east property line and it faces towards 17th Street. Is that correct? The gate you use sometimes is.
Do you mind putting the cursor into right?
It's right, basically go back this way a little bit more, and the gate is right there.
Right. It's at the point of the L, right?
Yep.
Bam. Nice.
That's correct.
And Eric, you're using the east-west leg of the alley to access your property? Is that right? You're
Yes.
coming from 17th Street?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I got a big truck and trailer that I come in and out of there with.
So if we chop this up, he goes across 3 properties, and his only access out tears out his neighbor's garden that's been there for 20 years. That seems
other
pretty
than
consequential.
he has a driveway off of Dean, right?
What's that?
He does have a driveway access off of Dean, the next parcel over.
To the south.
So you come in the corner and go out the front.
Right, so you can get to that point in the yard from 2 different ways.
Any other questions for this neighbor? Okay, thank you. Please do sign in before you sit down.
I did have a statement that I did get a hold of with Janelle personally, and I asked her really respectively, and I can share it with you.
Please do.
On what I had said to her. As you can see with that trailer in the way, and I got a picture right here.
Go ahead and document camera. Do you not use that?
Yeah.
Okay.
This right here with the trailer here, and then this trailer here, I had, with my previous employment, I had a 16-foot box truck that I needed to access for my property, and I had to conveniently ask Janelle, as you can see here, I said, good evening, I don't want to be the burden of bad news, but if we can get Jerry, which is her husband, to move his trailer and respect everyone else around him would be really polite and appreciated. We all know that that's not our lot, but there is a service alley there for our property, so I guess he wants to park his stuff there, but just be courteous of others. Thank you. And since then, this is what I get from Janelle to vacate the alley.
One quick question. What keeps you from accessing your property from your street, your driveway off the street with these?
It's more or less it's tight to the house, and then from there, it's not convenient as far as the truck and trailer.
Okay. I mean, okay.
Thank you. Or are you going to show some of
I was going to show more of
Go
what they park their stuff in there or whatever, but you get the, I think you guys get the, what's going on.
I think so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here tonight who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Anyone neutral? Okay. The applicant, you do have 5 minutes for a rebuttal if you'd like to speak.
The picture that Eric showed with both trailers was for one night. That trailer was left there, the flatbed. We pulled it out, parked it across the street at my daughter's house. As far as working with Gobin at the end, I've talked to Ganesh about it, and he really wants to keep his garden intact. Eric also has the possibility of tying into the main alley and having access to his property that full length. That would just be an option for him to do. Would be really ideal for him to move his fence back and put an entrance in there, or maybe someday he'll be able to build a garage back there. But we just want to put the one trailer that's there now that the pictures were taken of. And that's the reason I initially went after the property to try to find out. It's been just laying there for years. Any questions?
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open it up to the commission for discussion and motions.
If I could just remind the commission of your role in the vacation process is just to make a recommendation to the city council on if the right-of-way is needed for a public purpose. So really think about, it's more about, is there a public purpose for this? Is access needed? Is it needed for circulation? Who gets what is handled by our real estate and the city council.
How small is the public, though? Because you got 5 people with differing interests
I think
here.
that's completely fair.
So, I mean, if you're saying public, I've got 5 individuals in a community situation. It sounds like there's a difference of opinion. It sounds like there's access to, if one side gets mad at the other, this action taken here is going to result in access to retaliatory measures that are significant for someone else who's had 20 years of stability. It seems sort of odd to me to be changing this here when we're affecting what I would argue is a pretty meaningful public. We're 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 different interests.
Yeah, I don't have to dispute anything you're saying. I just wanted to steer the commission away from trying to negotiate like who's buying what, who's getting what, and that sort of thing.
I'll let you guys have that fun, but I guess my leaning is it seems to me there's more access to negative by approving this than there is positive to requiring the community to figure out how they're going to share use of these 2 accesses.
Yeah, I would agree that it sounds like there's actually been a fair amount of negotiation around how to use this space, and that ability to do that would be lost by making this change.
What happens if we deny it? Do they still go to,
You're making
sorry,
well,
you know what I mean?
You're making a recommendation to city council,
Yeah.
recommend denial. And I do think, just from the staff perspective, we've heard and learned a lot more tonight than
you knew.
Than we knew, so.
Then I would recommend denial of the desire for, I would recommend denial of staff to approve vacation. So I want to
You're
recommend
recommending
denial
to
of
city
vacation.
council that the vacation be denied?
Correct, yeah. I was trying to figure out how many negatives I can put in there.
Yeah. Well, the key is, you guys all know my pet peeve. You're not denying staff. We're just making a recommendation. You're recommending denial of the application.
So do we then vote not to approve? Is that how the?
The motion is for denial of the request.
Okay.
I would like to motion for denial of the request, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Thank you. We will move to item number 10, which will also be presented by Sriyoshi.
Madam Chair, Sriyoshi Chakraborty, planning staff. Item number 10 is a request for a property at 5,000 Southeast 14th Street. The specific request is an amendment to the Southdale PUD conceptual plan to allow the use of a specific tenant bay within the PUD located at 5116 Southeast 14th Street to allow a liquor store use selling alcoholic liquor, wine, and/or beer for off-premise consumption. This is the subject site. It's a fairly large area. The entire area is zoned PUD or planned unit development. The allowed uses and certain other regulations within a PUD are set by the PUD conceptual plan. And so with this particular request, you can see there's a tenant bay that's highlighted here. That's the subject property where the request to allow the sale of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer is requested. So this particular use that's been requested would not apply to the entirety of the PUD. It would just apply to this particular tenant bay where they are requesting for alcohol, wine and beer sales. So again, orienting you to the area, this is on Southeast 14th Street, just south of McKinley. It's a fairly busy corridor with lots of high-intensity commercial uses. This particular shopping area is called the Southdale Mall and has a couple big boxes and big retail building with multiple tenant bays, surface parking lot, and so on. So it's a fairly busy area. It is also surrounded by other bigger commercial uses. There's Walmart across the street, gas stations, and other commercial uses along the Southeast 14th corridor. There's also low-density residential to the west of the subject site, as you can see right here. This is just a picture of the subject site, the proposed tenant bay that's proposing to sell alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer is located right here. As you can see, there's several other businesses located and a fairly large surface parking lot. Another view of this particular commercial building. And the applicant provided a layout of their store, and you can just see a rough sketch of what they're proposing, how the store is going to be laid out. Additionally, this is going to function as a limited retail store that is going to be selling grocery and other convenience item. Additionally, they want to be able to sell alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer. They have some proposal in terms of their hours of operation. As you can see here, Sunday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Friday, Saturday, 10 a.m. to midnight. So I'd like to move on to staff's rationale and analysis of this particular amendment request. This is a little bit unique in terms of the other PUD amendment requests that you typically see, which have a lot to do with the design and layout and so on. This is just specific to this particular use request. If this subject property was not zoned PUD and it was just one of the typical zoning district, in order to be able to allow alcohol sale, they would be required to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment to secure a conditional use. And in order to get a conditional use approval, the particular use has to meet separation distances. And the separation distances are a minimum separation required for certain uses. So for instance, they would be required to be at least 500 feet from uses such as schools, daycares, parks, and so on. Additionally, they would also be required to be at least 1320 feet away from any other lot that is where there's limited retail sale of and fuel station, liquor store, tobacco store, any such use that is engaged in selling alcoholic liquor. In other words, there has to be a minimum separation distance requirement to be met from another similar use that's selling alcohol. So in analyzing this, it appears that this particular tenant bay does not meet the separation distance requirement of being at least 13-20 feet away from another use that's selling alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer. And that's primarily because there's a gas station, a come and go, that's about 1,200 feet south of this particular business. That's a gas station that is also selling alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer. And so because this particular location does not meet the separation distance requirements, staff does not support the request to be able to sell alcohol in this particular location. Should the commission be inclined to support it, staff is recommending that the PUD conceptual plan does include, under the general notes section, a few requirements, and they are listed right here. And I can come to these later, but that's just for the commission's information in the event that the commission might want to support this request, but staff would not be supportive of the request.
So it's just a deficit of 120 feet?
Yeah, roughly. Mm-hmm.
And we know that the new ownership of the Come and Go is going to continue to have liquor there?
I do not know, but we are basing our analysis on the current use and what's occurring currently. We do not know what might happen in the future. Moving forward, the applicant did do a neighborhood meeting as is required with any PUD amendments or rezonings, and there's a summary here. The applicant provided some detailed information during the meeting, and I'll just go through these, which provides a little bit more detail on their project. We received a letter from the president of the South Central Des Moines Neighborhood Association. The Neighborhood Association is not supportive of this particular request, and they have outlined some of their concerns as far as this particular request is concerned, and I'll let you read through this. Additionally, we did not receive any comment cards or letters from the neighbors who were notified about this particular request.
They referenced a location in that letter. Where is that on the last map?
It's right here.
No, the letter
Mhm.
from the Neighbor Association said, we don't need this because we got a place on McKinley and stuff. McKinley and Watrous, where, was that in the last image?
Oh, you're asking if this letter was included in our consent map?
No, I'm saying, in paragraph 2, second sentence identifies there is an establishment between McKinley and Watrous. What establishment is he talking about? And is it on that map you just showed?
I don't think it's on the map. That's to the north. That's a big stretch.
I guess that's my point. It's like it's over the hill and a long ways away. It doesn't seem very relevant. I'm just curious if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there might be a small grocery store kind of up by Watrous as I'm looking at the aerial, but I couldn't tell you what they're speaking to.
Well, if you guys don't know, I don't feel bad for not knowing either. So I'm cool with leaving it at that.
We're all on the same page.
Suresh, I have a question. I should know the answer to this, but are there districts that allow alcohol sales by right? Or do you always need an exemption for that?
They,
Oh, go ahead.
they would require a conditional use.
Okay.
But in certain districts, the separation distances are not required, such as in the downtown area with districts like DX2 and so on.
Okay. But in the type of district that this would likely be if it wasn't in a PUD, we've got that 1,320-foot guideline.
Correct. I mean, if you look at the zoning districts in this, generally in this vicinity, I think a lot of it would be like CX, MX3, that, you know, those kind of
CX is our
districts.
large format, auto-oriented commercial, which would match up perfectly with this layout. MX3 is also fairly auto-oriented, and you see that along our corridors.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Sriyoshi? Thank you, Sriyoshi. Is the applicant present?
Yes, dear.
Would you like to present? If you would, please come forward.
I don't have anything, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in favor of this item? Anyone opposed? Or neutral? Okay. If the applicant would like to change his mind and speak, you've got an option. Otherwise, I'll close the public hearing and open it up for discussion and motions.
My opinion is I would vote to deny this. I'm not a prude, but I'm just had enough of liquor stores and cigarette and vaping shops. I think we're seeing an overabundance of them. I don't see what adds anything to the community, and I think I would support the community neighborhood association in opposing this. So I make a motion we adopt staff.
Any discussion on that motion?
My one balance to that is while I think this will be a hard business in front of Walgreens, at the same time, it does seem like a lot, I'm sorry, not Walgreens, Walmart, whoops, sorry. It does seem, again, I'm not in this business, so it just seems hard to me on the numbers of it. At the same time, it is a family business, and our only restriction is that come and go is 120 feet too close. I guess, I'm sorry, Francis, we're finally in opposition again on this one, but I know there's a motion on it, but I guess I don't have a strong prevention against this.
Thank you. Jane?
I would add that I would tend to support a small family business as well. I don't see that the distance prohibition is significant enough to uphold it in this case.
I have a compounding question. Can you present can you put up the restrictions that you were proposing if staff were to not?
But these are just common language used on
Okay.
conditional use permits, so we included that in your packet.
Okay.
So had
I
this
just
gone
wanted
to
to
the
read through
board
it
and it met the separation requirement, the board's action would
include these
would
anyway?
likely include these.
Okay, thank you.
If we approve staff tonight and deny, can he go to council?
Yeah, he has to. This is just you guys are just
So this will
making
go to council
a
regardless?
recommendation. Yes, yep. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to approve the staff recommendation, which denies the request. All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. All opposed? What was that count?
I think the
Did the
motion
motion pass?
passed. It was
Okay,
five to four, correct?
Okay, motion passes.
Because Will is gone, yes, I believe is at 5 to 4. Because we had 10, right? Oh, we had 11?
Yeah, there's a 10 vote. I believe I got 6 for. I just want to confirm that, yes.
Yeah, we had 4 in opposition for sure. We had
Correct.
6 in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, motion passes. And we will move to our,
Oh, Carolyn coming late is what threw me off. I had the 10.
Carol.
I was like,
Okay, item number 11 is a consideration of amendments to chapters 134 and 135. Jason may want to say a little something.
yeah, I don't intend to do a big presentation. I think they're fairly straightforward, but I didn't want to put it on the consent agenda. I wanted to be able to, have it at the end. So if the commission had questions, if you had discussion, if you wanted to hear a little bit more about anything, we can delve into it, but I don't have a formal presentation to give. We do have the red lines available, we have the staff report, so if we do want to walk through it, we certainly can, but I'd leave it to the commission's discretion.
Well, I'd like more information.
Which particular aspects?
Well, I'd like you to walk through it.
Okay. When I just go down to So I think the best place to start is the staff report document, because it has a summary. And so what I'll do is I'll walk through that, and if we need to reference the red line document, we certainly can. So we broke this out into chapter 134, which is zoning code amendments, and we have chapter 135, which is site plan planning and design ordinance. The first batch of items is the group living, and these are changes to make the implementation of that part of the code easier to administer. The definitions aren't particularly clear, especially on the group living not otherwise classified, which doesn't really define what it means. And so our mission here is to amend the code, make it something that we can administer more effectively, and put uses that sometimes are gray, help us define them a little better. We also, I think the slide that I'm showing you doesn't have, this is the older staff report, so it doesn't have the provisions for temporary use at a religious assembly place or a place of worship, and providing specific language that identifies places of worship having the ability to, in a temporary manner, house unhoused individuals. You could have an emergency shelter situation. Next is a batch of signage amendments. These are really clarifiers. We also included the corresponding language for chapter 26, which isn't part of your purview, but it's related to the signage, so it's really cleanup. Industrial services and the storage, distribution, and wholesaling uses are both under the kind of the industrial category. And we've, in the industrial services, the language there, it doesn't do, that's where we've parked our contractor office, contractor storage, a contractor's office use, but it doesn't really speak to it very clearly, so we're trying to clarify that, make the code easier to administer. The storage, distribution, warehouse category, the way the definitions or descriptions are written today, there's a lot of overlap, and so it's a challenge for staff to say, is this distribution, is this warehousing? It's all three of them, so what we're trying to do is just streamline that. Accessory building change, there's a couple changes. Let's see, it's also related to the outdoor storage use. So these last two changes, we have seen challenges in the enforcement end of the world and shipping containers being used as accessory buildings. We've gotten a lot of complaints on those, and as we've tried to enforce with the language in the code today, we've had some struggles in being successful. And so what this does is tighten up our language in Chapter 134. We've often relied more on language in 135. And so now we're balancing that out with some stronger language in 134 to help with that particular issue. So that's the zoning changes, like largely cleaning stuff up. And then in Chapter 135, as we've reviewed site plans for industrial uses, we've found that there's often a challenge finding the right accessory building type to match what it is they want to do. We wanted to create an accessory building type that has more flexibility. The biggest thing would be height, for example. If we look at our normal outbuilding description, we're looking at something that's supposed to be half a story shorter than the main building or 17 feet tall. It's really geared more towards residential and smaller scale commercial. So anyway, this is to address a gap in the code that we see. And then the last batch is part of ongoing discussions that we've had with regard to what is triggering the need for a site plan. So we are, with this change, within all of our changes, we are continuing to monitor our processes, our codes, listen to feedback, and we are proposing to eliminate vacancy as something that triggers site plan review. There's more to it, but whether it's 6 months vacant or not, this would not impact grandfathering rights from a zoning perspective. So vacancy you may still lose your grandfathering rights from a zoning perspective. Also looking to establish common uses. The language in your draft has 3 groupings of uses that can be interchanged, and to allow greater flexibility of changes of use without needing review. And then the last aspect of it is to provide softening or offset to those small businesses and small property owners that are a little more impacted by the whole idea of making improvements to your property that represents 50% of the value of your assessed value of your property. Obviously, 50% of a small valued parcel is a lot, bigger hurdle to overcome if you're putting that in relationship to what might need to be done from a site plan preparation perspective and then site improvements. So this creates an or essentially instead of being 50% of the assessed value, and that's just what it is, it'd be 50% of the assessed value or $500,000, whichever is greater. So if you're pulling permits and doing renovations, if you're a smaller value property, even if you go beyond 100% of the value of your property, you wouldn't fall into needing to do a site plan until you hit that $500,000 cumulative figure. So again, this last batch of changes is really to address small business, small property owner, to facilitate their needs. So, any questions?
Thank you, that was helpful. Could we go to the group living?
Sure.
The first one? So I guess I'm curious why this one in particular is here. And you mentioned when churches use their facilities as temporary emergency shelters for unhoused people. Are there other types of instances that have come up?
Yeah, and so yes.
I can open the updated one.
Okay, if you would.
We have that.
Those are actually 2 different things. This was an older.
All right.
So the two different code sections, 2 different issues. The group living is coming out of, the last few years we've had, there's been a lot of discussion in the community, whether it's discussion with enforcement, whether it's council discussion, whether it's, following through on enforcement and the challenges there. The other is
discussion on what?
On group living. How did what falls into group living is one of those interesting or more challenging categories because there's a lot of federal and state regulation that impact how we regulate residential use and group living use, and so it's created some challenges for us there's also, like I said, there's been a lot of, over the last few years, we've had some rezoning requests that have raised some red flags about when you're trying to read our code, what does our code really say? Is our code, there's some gaps in our code with like interpretation, and what we're trying to do is just tighten up the code language so it's easier to administer, so we understand what it actually is trying to get us to do.
So do you have examples? Because I appreciate making things more clear, but I don't know how it's being limited in the clarifications that you're creating.
Sure.
Can I jump in with potentially helpful? So the new definitions of dormitory and rooming house, how would those impact, say, Drake neighborhood if I have a large frat-like house? Like, how would that help in that?
Sure. The code as it's written today, we have, let me just go to the red line. Did I go past
Because that was rooming house, yep.
Yeah, so there's really, let me break the group living discussion down into two aspects. The first aspect that we're looking at is the fact that we have a category in the zoning ordinance today that's called group living not otherwise classified. And it's really vague, and it's really hard to say what is that. And what we'd like to do is change the language in it and add a little more definition to it, so we're actually saying what really realistically can fit into this category. So you can see the change in the language there. So we're just changing the name of something that already exists today in the code. And then correspondingly, we're adding definitions in the definition section of, well, what is a frat, sorority house, a dormitory, and a rooming house. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect of the change has to do with how a housekeeping unit is defined. So right now, the way the ordinance is written, we have under residential use, the big umbrella residential use, we have household living and we have group living. And the way we've defined household living's definition really points back to the description of household living points to the definition of a single housekeeping unit. And the way that the definition of the single housekeeping unit is written today, it's fairly broad, and so things that it's hard to distinguish what something that is operating as a group living use from a household living use. And so if they can fit either definition, then they can fit into the household living. So all we're trying to do here is further define what a single housekeeping unit is. So that way we can properly place uses into those bigger buckets. So we can put a use in either the household living bucket or the group living bucket. Nothing about the table that defines what districts these uses can go into is changing. It's just really about cleaning up the definitions so we can administer the code more effectively.
I would just say with this that the stable as opposed to transient language is itself pretty vague and maybe not very helpful. So the rest of it looks good, but that's just a comment. Like I don't know if somebody came down and tried to fight about that. I don't know how they would really, right? Some people's families are fairly transient. You have people who come and go, right? So, but thank you. I appreciate the clarifications.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I kind of, by the end of the meeting, the downside of putting this at the end is I just don't have all my mojo still.
I've got a question on the site plan review triggers. The second one, eliminating the need to comply with site plan regulations when a property has been vacant for more than 6 months. I was trying to imagine, like if I bought a property, vacant property for 6 months or more, and I wanted to do a $5 million renovation of it, I don't have to comply with any?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
And all that's doing is saying that vacancy in and of itself. So if, let's say you have a property that's, you own it, a tenant's moved out and you're marketing it, and then, it's been an office and the next user's an office, they just want to come in and dust stuff off and run a, no need for a site plan, even if it's been 5 years while you've been trying to get somebody in there. The notion of the value, like addition, expansion, renovation, that's still.
That also applies?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And vacancy that trigger in of itself only represents about 4% of the site plans that we actually review. So it's not something we see a lot of anyway.
Todd?
I just came from a real estate presentation.
Could you speak into your mic, please?
I just came from a commercial real estate presentation before this, where this was brought up by the mayor and Carrie, the Economic Development Office.
Sure.
As being a major impediment to small business tenant improvements in all throughout downtown and really throughout the city. And I think the last paragraph, just so everybody understands what happens, is that the cumulative total of the improvements to that building, if it ever goes over 50% of the assessed value of the building, then triggers the site plan. If I'm a tenant wanting to do a TI project and that's not brought to my attention because the building owner hasn't improved the sidewalks, we've just recently run into this, I submit my building plans to do my tenant improvement project, and it gets flagged that the site plan has not been approved, so I'm not going to get my building permit. That while we're trying to improve the business climate for small businesses, that caveat's that could kill projects.
Yeah, and
they've already spent a lot of money to get.
Already in place, we will often issue a letter, a warning letter saying, we'll approve this permit, just be aware that the next time. So it doesn't always, we have the ability to account for the scale of the project within the language of the code currently, and we do. We routinely sign off on permits, even though we're beyond the 50%. If it's of a magnitude that's doesn't correspond.
I'm just saying, this is what's been brought up.
Sure.
I've experienced it, and as developers and commercial real estate agents, they're trying to, attract small businesses to downtown. This will still be an impediment if that building owner hasn't disclosed that the total improvements to date are at that limit. Their project might put it over, then that owner has to go get their site plan designed, approved, and everything before that tenant technically, can do their project or move into their project. I'm not saying right or wrong what you're proposing is going to help things or hurt things. It's been an impediment and could be a future impediment to what the goal and the intent of the language is.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is find that equilibrium between all the different goals and all the different things that we're trying to achieve. And we're always going to be monitoring and adjusting that. And that's, I don't know that just completely dumping everything is the right move either. So what we've tried to put together here is a move based off of, as we've studied this, I think this is a move to more of an equilibrium. And if we get there and we find that it's not, then we'll make more changes. And we've, as you can, code amendments are on your guys' agenda, I feel like at least quarterly. So we're always, it's a living document. We're learning, adjusting as we go, and we will continue to do so.
As long as we're on those learning and amendment moments then. So I guess, because I'm curious, because I have the same question, is because unless I misunderstood, it seems like our cumulative total now, we've now done a reset back to a static date again. And then we're saying 50% of improvements aggregated since another new static date. Is that right?
No.
Or did I misread that?
There's no change to that part of the code other than to put in or $500,000. So we're not tinkering with like so the cumulative, that date or that regulation's been was enacted in 2004. So we've had that around for some time. And so we're not touching that. All we're doing is saying it's not just 50% of your assessed value, it's 50% or $500,000, whichever is greater.
I guess what I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding, so it seems like the game that we're trying to prevent is someone sort of dripping improvements over a period of time where they've now actually gone and pulled a Hearst Castle on us or something, right? Where like the taxes never go and they just keep forever dragging it out and they're just at 49% constantly, right? But I think what I'm understanding Tom's saying is there's situations where I've now aggregated over a period of time where that incremental is problematic. Is there a reason that we don't want to instead say, hey, it's 50% here over the last 9 months or 18 months? Is there any data we have on how long this scenario we're attempting to avoid actually lasts for? I mean, like Hearst Castle was, what, 40 years? That guy never paid taxes on that thing? But now...
Yeah, we've kicked around a lot of different ways to try to crack this nut. One was, you can move the date. You can have it be always a time frame.
I like time frame. That's like
a revolving time frame.
Right.
But how long is that? And do you just are you still just stalling projects? So.
Well, but my question, that's where my question comes is, what is the strategy? Well, do we have examples of projects where we're like, oh man, these guys were cheating, and so this is the scenario they came up with? That's what I'm trying to figure, because we routinely have conversations with applicants about their values and then permits, so, they come in under, that's fine, that's a part of it, that's fine. So, we're just trying to find a way to take care of the biggest issue, which is the impact to the small property owner, the small business owner, without completely just undoing it and not, And I'm not advocating undo it completely. I'm just saying I think I would hope we recommend looking at a relativistic date and that size of that window off of today minus, time minus today. I'm sure our data is going to show us, hey, these are ones that are clearly cheating it, or these are ones that actually we don't really care about, right? I think it's that incremental TI issue that as long as the incremental TI isn't too massive over a certain period of time, I'm probably good with it, right? Versus ones that are really sort of gaming it, and that's where I just always have trouble with any arbitrary, not in a legal sense, but what feels like an arbitrary, not because it's unreasoned, but arbitrary because it's a static date that's going to not fluctuate with the context of today. I guess that's my challenge with this fix a little bit, is we're sort of like halfway covering the Band-Aid and not going and saying, what's the strategy we really want to achieve with this modification? Does that help?
No, I understand what you're saying. I assure you, we've spent a long time talking about different ways to do this, and there's just no perfect way to do it. This is what we came up with to at least try to take care of what we saw as the biggest issue with it.
This isn't an attack, and I'm not saying something's not going to work.
I'm
just suggesting that there may be a more relativistic approach to solving it that I think addresses Tom's thing, which he says that we still have access to that threat, and I think the access to that threat is still there and can't always be dependent on saying, you do a great job negotiating with the public. We may not always have one of you again. So then what will we do when we don't have you?
Right. I apologize if I seem I'm not trying to be defensive. I guess what I'd like to do is at least move forward with this, and then if we want to keep figure out another way to tackle it, or if you have specific things that you'd like to suggest. What I don't want to do is put a pause on this, because I think there's good parts to it, and then, it's 6 months, and,
I'm not advocating a pause. I'm advocating that if we, unless there's a reason that it isn't correct, I would rather advocate a 24-month window on the aggregate cost piece. Because that seems like it's long enough that I'm not going to be too really gaming it, given the fact that these commercial leases and large TIs are 10 years, right? I'm not going to be sitting there for 2 years to game it, right? But it still gets to what I'm really looking at, which is those big changes really need to be reviewed.
Yeah, I think 2 years is probably a pretty short window that's easily to avoid. So, I mean, at that point, I think it's probably why I have the requirement. Anyway, I mean, I think it has, I don't disagree that maybe there's a different way to look at this, but that is the risk of a very short window of time.
Look, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I've just heard from others that it impacts projects. It impacts commercial real estate's ability to market certain buildings. And for instance, a $500,000 project could be a 3,500 square foot TI for an office space. It doesn't take a lot of square feet to hit $500,000. And if it's in a building where, you're already exceeded that 50% threshold or whatever, and we didn't know about it, then speed is everything with these small business tenant improvement projects. Getting them permitted, getting them done.
Right, and we routinely will sign off on a permit on a promise that a site plan will come in.
Right.
I mean, we work really hard to find solutions.
And you do, but sometimes it's just that little hiccup is like.
Well, the sense of panic.
Right, it's
But
like,
we usually try to resolve it.
Why didn't you guys know about this? Well, we didn't know the other projects exceeded that value, or, so at least we have a number in there now, $500,000,
Yeah.
That's. Council's got to really think hard about it.
What's that?
Council's got to really think hard about that. And
Yeah, I mean, this
probably
aspect of the code, or any aspect of the code, we're always, we'll continue to, this is a living document, we're living and learning, we're making adjustments, we will continue to make adjustments. You'll see more amendments from us this year. This is definitely something that we'll continue to monitor, and if people have ideas, whether it's this or other, we're open to hearing those as well. This is what we came up with to try to at least take that a step in addressing those concerns.
And I'm not trying to keep everyone from going to bed, but like these are the things that are like my super plan and zoning, so I read up on this, so I got questions. And I'm not saying again, I love most of the stuff in here. I guess my question is, if 2 years is too short, is 10 years correct, since that's a standard commercial lease? I just wonder if there's a time window that could be looked at.
Sure.
But other questions, I guess I'm curious, dormitory and rooming house, like if we look at a We Live business model, are we assuming that's a rooming house? And is that type of is this doing what we would want for that type of business model? Have we cared about or thought about it at all? Or does it fall somewhere outside of that, meaning we don't really have a home for it now because we've added specificity in other group housing?
So can you describe to me what use you're...
So like the We Live is the WeWork guy who lived in a kibbutz, is that if we pronounce it correct, wants to have these, office tower kibbutzes all over, right? So you sort of have an apartment, but it may or may not have all the full features of an efficiency. So we've got sort of this group living dynamic thing, but we're all sort of have independently leased. It's sort of like
It sounds like a boarding house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess my curiosity is, would we say that thing fits in what we have here, or by making these silos in there, do we risk some of those models being outside? If it is, what do we call it then?
I don't think we risk. We would, we always have the opportunity to make a determination with our zoning enforcement staff. If we get a new use, something we never dreamed of, we look at it, what is it most comparable to? And then we try to, we place it wherever it goes. What you're describing to me, I mean, it does sound like a boarding house, rooming house. If it's shorter stay, there's maybe it falls under hotel or something, but if it's a longer lease, it does sound like a boarding house where each person doesn't have like their own kitchen and, defined.
It will just vary. Some may,
Yeah.
some don't.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not, I think they would fit in here, but the intent isn't to preclude that.
The deletions in 712, are there, like, the deletions of 712, what are examples of what that would benefit it? Is that like the liquor store on Second? Would that have had no issue due to those deletions?
I'm
What
sorry,
exact-
712 is, which I don't have it all memorized.
That was our landscaping deletions, I believe. If you go to the red lines, you have a whole chunk.
Okay, at 135?
Yeah, I believe, yes, should be 135.
Oh, the general review procedures?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we were trying to do, and I guess I glossed completely over that. Right now, there are site plan review procedures in Article 9, that, the review and approval, the main review and approval procedures are there. Then we have some in Article 7 that are in the landscaping area, and then we have some in the parking section. And some of the ones in the parking and the landscaping section are more general in nature, and they also all overlap with each other. And so what we were trying to do is just get them all the general review procedures in one place in the code to make the code just a little bit easier to administer.
So
that make
all the
sense?
same reviews are there, it's just that they're not broken out in their separate
Easier to find
section?
them. That's the shorter way to, yeah, everything is all there. The language is not changing. We're just putting it in one spot so it's easier to find.
Okay,
I'm
so there's,
gonna-
sorry.
I'm going to suggest that if there are topics that we think that we might want to change before we recommend or don't recommend approval, that we kind of go through those. Otherwise, if there's just more kind of general clarifications and questions, maybe we would move that outside this meeting. I feel like we're getting,
Well, I don't know to recommend a change if I don't understand what it's doing. That's part of my problem. That's why I wasn't sure what the deletions meant. And the only thing that I would actually have one recommended for a change, though, is on the homeless, the allowance of homeless being confined to houses of worship, not to be, the too anti-religion person here, but why not just a more general nonprofit that has a social interest? Like, why is it that it's a house of worship is the only one that's allowed for temporary, or is there some other reason?
Yeah, that's just, that's a great point. And if you wanted to make that recommendation, that would be fine. This is coming out of discussions that are focused on partners. And so that's where this is coming from. And it's just to create a more defined, just to proactively identify this in the temporary use versus leaving it undescribed or vague.
Yeah, I just dislike the fact that it feels like we're giving a lot of carve-outs to specific entities based off of something that isn't the government's role. I mean, there's supposed to be a separation. I know we're trying to break that at the federal level, but to say, hey, we've got a special use here for a religious institution that's allowed to help when we may be putting up a roadblock for another nonprofit for a social good. I mean, if...
I imagine that it was there as protection because there's religious institutions that are already doing this, but if it's possible to expand it and say, or other nonprofit organizations, I think that would be fantastic.
Yes, that's what I would rather have, yes.
Yeah, I think, if you want to make that part of a motion, that be considered, that's fine.
any other discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
Then I'll make a motion to approve staff with the addition that the allowance for temporary unhoused support expands to all nonprofits or benefit corporations with social interest.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Motion passes. Are there any directors' reports or committee reports tonight?
I don't have any, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.